So, man, it all went well except for, oh, see, it should have been here. Yeah, see. I wanted to carry the music out, you know. I'm still kind of an amateur here.
Nice. I like
Yeah,
it.
it didn't work quite as well as I hoped.
Is that
That's
you on the
okay.
guitar? Is
Huh?
that you on the guitar?
Absolutely. And the Moog synthesizer, too. All right. So, Blue, you and I are going to discuss a couple things. Rationale. I wanted to use the word rationale. It just struck me just now. Rather than, just laundry listing our favorite five strength exercises associated with runners, I wanted to think of the rationale. What are we trying to do? Why are we doing it? When should it happen? Because I think that's the part of the equation that a lot of people don't really get, right?
Yeah, I want to hear your perspective on that. I feel like I've had a good time being a guinea pig over the years, with just different ways to bring in the strength training, different types of strength training, different desired outcomes from power to hypertrophy. So yeah, I'm curious to hear where this is going to go.
Well, so now, just to be clear, my intent was to discuss exercises that are directly going to be benefiting your running ability,
Yeah,
right? And so, right out of the gate, off the list comes hypertrophy. You don't need a big muscle when you're trying to run. That's the last thing
yeah,
you need. Now,
yeah,
if you have big muscles, that is what it is. But speed is lighter, right? And
yep,
I know you've probably done it where you kind of skipped away from running and focusing a lot on just putting on some muscle. And the first revisit to running, it feels like you're carrying a weighted vest or something because you
yep.
just your biceps feel heavy and the whole thing. So I think just right out of the gate, we just trash the concept of hypertrophy. Now, you did touch on power and muscular endurance, and these clearly are benefits for a runner.
Yeah.
And it's funny because you were asking earlier about how many podcasts we've done lately and whatever. Before you and I got onto this little tirade, I was doing some podcasts with a friend of mine, Devin Tolentino. Devin is a machine. Okay, this guy is a machine, and he runs a what he calls Redline Quality Fitness here in Tennessee, and he's deceivingly big, meaning that in clothes you would never get it, but this guy's strong as an ox, right? And so one of the things that he's known for that I think is pretty to put it into context, he's got this workout. He goes 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. So it's 500-pound deadlift, 400-pound squat, 300-pound bench press, 200-pound overhead press, and a 1 minute 400-meter run. Boom, boom,
Wow.
boom, 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 like that. So here's a guy that he's not getting. I mean, it's like I gotta like put a fork in it every now and then for him because he's always talking about skinny runners, skinny runners, skinny runners. Because he's pretty beefy, and he doesn't. He came to see me, and I worked on his running mechanics because they sucked so badly. But the guy can run. I mean, forget it. It's like the guy can run. So sometimes power trumps skill, I think,
Hmm.
and he's testament of that. So now, could he run faster if he ran better? Absolutely. But anyway, so um, again, where I was going with this is that he and I were working on strength, five favorite um, body weight exercises. Then we went into five favorite strength training exercises. And then each of us, we kind of modeled the workout so that it would kind of meld, right? So in my world, we don't just go to the gym and lift weights. It's about a strength exercise associated with run, another strength exercise associated with a run. So there's always a run. So So in my world, what I'm looking at is moving that muscle, right? Let's move that muscle. You want to be able to bring game, but you also want to be able to run. So, and in his world, he like if there's any running at all, it's like 250 meters or something. It's short.
Yeah.
But anyway, long story short, where I see this going is, and again, you and I both kind of landed on the same exercises. And I think it's just logical conclusion. You're just saying, well, these are the kind of things that you want to do. Now, personally, and I want to get your take on it, if your focus is running, and I'm going to be clear about this, I'm talking about somebody that's trying to run a marathon, maybe their best 10K, even if of their best 5K, or even an ultra distance event. There's not a whole lot of room for upper body exercises, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I just think any baggage that you create up there is going to weigh you down. So the focus is, and I almost said from the legs down, but it's not going to be like that, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think? Am I crazy?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think the desired intention or what you're trying to get out of it, I think we're going to get into that a little bit more, but I think it's important to me to understand what I'm trying to get out of every session in the weight room, because a lot for myself, it's more about activation of the muscle as opposed to something like a specific level of strength. So being that I'm trying to run a marathon, what I'll notice is, okay, my stability is suffering. My maybe like a little bit, I'm getting more quad dominant. My hamstring's not firing enough. My glutes are just shutting down. So I'm looking for the very specific muscle activation so that I can cue those muscles while I'm on the run, understanding that the time I spend running is going to be way more than any time I spend weight training. So I'm not really looking for a specific progression in strength over 6 weeks in my deadlifts. Like I just don't care about that. Like my weight will pretty much always look the same in my reps, so might increase just relative to kind of just what I can put out that day, but because all I'm really looking for is basically like a muscular endurance, but a specific muscle activation through the different range of motion that's appropriate for the running. So to your point, to answer your question the long way, it's, the upper body stuff. I do pull-ups because, for the pulling and keeping the back strong and posture, and some push-ups just to balance it. But yeah, it's not the primary focus. All the hinge stuff is really where it's at.
That's why I caught myself, is because core activation is critical. You want to make sure that you're engaging, because at the end of the day, you're tossing yourself in the air and you're coming back to earth, right? And if you're breaking down anywhere along the kinetic chain, that's a power leak, right? So it can happen at the ankle, the knee, the hip. It could be that your spine is just not cooperating. So exercises that are going to engage the entire system are beneficial. And I agree with you. And as you know, what I almost put in the list was a dead hang.
Yeah.
Now, I
Yeah.
mean, rather than just to pull up, just a dead hang, that really does engage your entire system.
Well, and I almost put in dead hang and I know you put planks in. I was going to put those in, left them out, but I do them out every day. And then the L hang. I mean, the combination of just the dead hang and the L hang for me, it's like I feel like I can gauge my core strength if I can hold the L position for 10, 20 seconds at a time. And I typically throw those in between every set in my strength workout.
So just taking a pause here. I've got a couple images because I'm just going to assume that there are people that might not know what a deadlift looks like. And
Yeah.
I don't know that these images are going to help, but let's just kind of see if we can pop some of these out. Okay. So in essence, this guy is going to do a traditional deadlift. And now
Yep.
we're not talking about this type of deadlift, but I can see where this could still be involved in the process.
Yeah.
We were talking about single leg RDLs, Romanian deadlift. I like one leg at a time activation.
Yep.
And I'm sure you did. You showed it on your list. And let's see, what else do I have here? This is fun. Okay, here we go. This is the plank exercise. And, I don't know how long you hold your plank.
30 seconds to a minute typically, and I'll just do multiple sets, and then I'll go into a like a side plank as well, and then with a reach, and I'll work through that for over about 2 minutes.
Got it. And then there is the glute bridge.
Love it, best
Now,
one.
now the glute bridge is really great for engaging your anterior chain as well as your glutes. So your
Hmm.
psoas muscles that if you have a job that causes you to sit on your butt all day, your psoas muscles get shortened. That basically is your hip flexors, and it
Yep.
starts to lock down on your spine. It could limit your range of motion and your biomechanics as a runner. But just kind of waking up the glutes. When you get into extension like this, the glutes are going to fire. And obviously, there's a lot of um, versions of this. Obviously, you could do a weighted glute bridge, which is getting to be really popular with people that are trying to get their butt to look good in a bathing suit.
Yep.
But I mean, I've seen some people put on some really big weight on a barbell across their junk to really fire those glutes. Um, I know a lesser version of that, but uh, more in their line of developing stability is like one leg. So either
Yes.
extend a leg out or point the leg straight up and
Yep.
then pump that bad boy. So butt touches the deck, full extension, up and down one leg, up and down the other leg. And these I think too are very effective exercises. And I couldn't help but do this because we're talking about running, and this is going to resonate with you, I know, because you got a couple of kids, and I know you revel in watching them run. But check this out.
Oh yeah.
So here's a kid running, just no care in the world, and then I'm going to slow it down. You can see perfectly on the forefoot, heels are touching down. Just no thought of at all other than I'm going to run. And
Yeah.
somewhere along the way, we got to get involved and screw this up. And that's a shame, I guess. But natural functionality is what we're after. We want to be able to regain what we may have lost over our tenure on the planet. Because we're making big mistakes with the way we move. And this is the integration of the strength exercise. We're trying to get back to strengthening the musculature that is necessary to conduct ourselves as runners, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and then when we spend too much time away from the strength, doing something like running, if it's that's your primary activity, we all know that the body loves to find efficiency, and then therefore shut down unnecessary, muscle use, which is that's problematic because then over time it's like, oh, we don't really need those hamstrings and glutes. We can still get away with this. It's like, yeah, but no.
Well, and
Then things
so the other consideration that I think is worth noting is I've owned health clubs. You know this. And back in the day, owning a health club is different than what we see these days. I mean, geez, they don't even have staff anymore. Now you just kind of plug in your key code and you go in. It's your gym for a while, right? But gyms were designed to be plug and play. Used to be a lot of selectorized equipment where you walk up. Nautilus was one of the featured products back in the day, where the intent was to walk up to a machine and there's like a loop you're going to do. So leg extension, leg curl, calf raise, seated calf raise, standing calf raise, um, on and on and on. And but isolating each of those particular regions of the body and hammering it out. And so you talk about an opportunity to create some imbalances, right? So you
yeah,
love doing the quad extensions because you get that real hot burn in your quadriceps, and it feels like you're really getting it done. And so you spend 80% of your time there and 15% of your time doing the leg curls that you hate, right?
yeah,
You don't
yeah,
want to work those hamstrings. And nobody
yeah,
back in the day used to do deadlifts. I mean,
yeah,
doing Olympic style lifts just doesn't happen. And they got the little corner of the gym where there's like the free weight room, right?
yeah.
But everything else was cardio equipment and selectorized. I own one of those, man. And the idea being that it becomes very easy for a consumer to come in and care for themselves. So rather than wandering around aimlessly, this little placard that tells you, okay, this is the part of the, it's lit up, shows like your quadriceps are red and everything else is like just an illustration of your body. Okay,
Yep.
put the pin in here and then flex, 12
Yeah.
to 15 repetitions and move on. It's like a par three golf course. If you stay there
Yeah.
too long, you're going to get in somebody else's way, right?
Yep.
But I've seen like the bodybuilding style workouts where people are just kind of, they're still in that mode. They're just working on isolated movement patterns and collectively hoping. I mean, they looks great in the mirror. I mean, if you want to, I call them show ponies. You want to look good in the mirror. You're doing those lateral raises for your deltoid, and not just one. You're going to do the front, the side, the back, and then maybe you do an overhead press to tie it all together. You could spend the whole day just making sure you don't miss anything, right?
Yep.
And so somebody came up with a novel idea of doing a split workout where half the body's going to happen on Monday, other half's going to be on Tuesday, or possibly even a 3-day split, right? But again, it's all this isolation and segregation where sports specificity is where I live. I'm talking about let's do the things that are going to pay the rent.
Yeah.
I want to be a much more stable, much more effective runner. What do I got to do to make that happen? Rather than wasting a buttload of time doing things that just aren't going. I mean, there's going to be some appeal. You're going to look good in your T-shirt. People that don't live in California this won't make sense to them. But we used to refer to the workouts that we call them Oxnard polio, right? So these guys got really big guns to fill their T-shirt, and their legs are like little sticks because they don't care about their legs. They're going to
Yep.
cover those up with pants. They just want to see their bicep popping.
Yeah.
And that was a thing in Oxnard. So if I offended anybody, I apologize.
Yep.
But sports specificity, right? So becoming a better runner.
Yeah.
You know what? We have a video somewhere that you and I did. You were the model, where we did a series of exercises in sequence for developing your running capacity.
Yep.
I have it somewhere. I should have looked it up.
Yeah, that's an old school one. Bad haircuts and worse style. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not much change.
Like if you pick one, if you had to pick one, got to have this exercise, what is it?
Deadlifts. It's got to be the
Absolutely agree
deadlift.
with you.
Yeah.
What's interesting is like I've heard conversations with other podcasters that are in the strength world, and when the question might be, what's the best core exercise? Resounding deadlift.
Deadlift. Yeah.
Everybody says deadlift, right?
Yep.
Deadlift is one-stop shopping. You're definitely going to engage your entire core.
Yep.
You're going to get after those, not just your hamstrings, but you got back. You're engaging a ton of stuff.
Yep. And you bring up the back. I mean, even down to your grip strength. I mean, you don't think about it when you're doing deadlift, but you're actually holding weight. I mean, even it really is a full body exercise. With the emphasis in all the right places for the biggest muscles in your body. So yeah, it's the best.
What's the second?
Man, I mean, if I'm really being honest with if I just have time for two things, I'm gonna hang on the bar. I'm gonna hang and I mentioned in the list doing isometric, whether it's pull-ups, push-ups, or squats, and that's just a matter of kind of going back to the dead hang. It's just basically doing pull-ups and only allowing about an inch of travel, and then multiple seconds of hold all the way up. So then you're really taking your time, and for me, what I'm finding out is where is the weak point in that chain, and then when I get fit, when I find the weak point, I stay there for longer until that's no longer.
Degrees.
Yeah, and then I do an L hang when I'm at the top of the pull up, and then I always do the lower same thing, isometric holds all the way down, but with an L hang. And so, doing 3 of those sets, like that's, I mean, I'm shaking.
Yeah.
And so I think, like, honestly, if I just had time for one other thing besides the deadlifts, that's what I'm going to do. Just because I feel like now I've got the balance.
You know, it's
Full body.
interesting you talk about that because, again, not to kick a dead horse, but Devin had told me that doing pull ups for him is a cardio workout
Wow.
because he's able to do enough of it, it jacks his heart rate,
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
that ain't gonna do anything for my heart rate because I'm gonna get up there, I'm gonna fall off of the thing in 30 seconds if I'm lucky. There's not gonna be any heart rate engaged.
Yeah. In 1 rep.
Yeah. So again, specificity. My exercise number 2 would be a step up.
Yeah.
I
Love
like
it.
I like step ups onto typically for an adult male about a 24-inch step
Yeah.
and weighted alternating steps.
Yeah.
So if you
Do you go with a high knee at the top? So when you step up, do you bring that alternate knee all the
yeah
way up? Yeah.
and pause.
Yeah. And with dorsiflexion.
Yeah. Now if
Yeah.
you can get 90 at the hip and to the knee at the
Yep.
top and then come back to the deck and then repeat for I don't know. I mean, just depends on what the game is, but and also what the load is. I mean,
Yeah.
and I think the going through the whole gamut rather than just trying to go ham and just putting a lot of weight on it. I think there's some value in doing multiple repetitions. Like I'm talking about like 20 repetitions off each leg before you step into the weight, and then progressively load
Yeah.
up and just really slam it home. Hunter created a workout when he was doing this thing called the OCR Stars. You remember this?
Yep. Yeah.
He had a workout called Step Over Forever, which
Okay.
is up onto the box, step over the other side, up onto the box, step over the other side. I forgot how many repetitions it was, but he was relating it to how many vertical feet you're climbing. So
Mm.
I think the
Yeah.
workout ended up being about 1,600 feet of vertical climb. Um,
Wow.
and so if you put that into context with somebody that's running trails or doing some climbing, you can see where it's just the muscular endurance you're going to gain from that exercise.
Yeah.
Um, and so I didn't put it on my list, but it's definitely it is on my list. It's just I don't have an image for it. I was,
Yeah.
I ain't gonna lie. I was scampering around here trying to get things done this morning, and I was trying to find these images, and I just didn't like the one I found, so I just didn't put it up. But step up is
Yep.
definitely it. So for me right now, I got 3.
Yep.
I've got the deadlift. Did I say plank? What was my number 2?
Yeah.
Step
You
up
had
was
that in
my
the
number
plank.
2. I was going to
Step
say
up was
plank.
good. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
I was going to say plank. So plank is number. And so this might surprise you. Let's see if I can make this work. So skip and rope.
Yeah.
I'll never forget. I saw a video. It was like an interview with Haile Gebrselassie.
Yep.
Haile Gebrselassie would jump rope every day barefoot on natural surfaces. Now, obviously, running is a function of the ground up, right? If you don't have integrity in your feet, then somewhere along the chain there's going to be a mishap. Things are going to go
Yeah.
wrong. And I can't think of
Yep.
anything that's more simplistic than actually skipping rope, And I like to do individual legs, right? Step, 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 step. So there you go. You're getting good knee turnover, and you're engaging your forefoot. And I mean, I can't do it barefoot because there's nothing worse than a stinging rope against the big toe.
Yep. That hurts.
Got to have a little
Yeah.
something there. Back in the day,
Yeah.
I would do double unders with a no, I was going to say a shot clock, but it was a swimming clock, right? So those big dialed swimming
Mm.
clocks. And I would do like a minute double unders and then do an exercise and then do a minute double unders and do an exercise and then run home, right? So end up with about a
Yeah.
5-mile run with the workout in the middle. But
Wow.
I like a jump rope, And if you could pull the double unders, that's great. If you can't, don't feel shamed. Um, you still
Yeah.
get the same effect. I had a friend back in the day that was in the Guinness Book of World Records for skipping rope, and this guy would do like triples. It's like for it. It just looked like a buzz saw. You didn't even see the rope. Didn't look like he was even touching the ground. Buster Holliday was his name. He was a boxer.
Yeah, boxers, man. That's how I got into it back in. I did Golden Gloves when I was 18, and for 2 years, and yeah, just so we'd run 4 miles every day, 5 days a week, and then we'd jump rope for I think we'd 4 to 5 rounds typically jump rope before everything else, and shadow box for 5 rounds, and then start to hit the speed bags, heavy bags, and then spar. And yeah, I mean, like those foundational movements, it's like you looked at the running and the skipping rope and the shadow boxing were all just sort of the foundation where everything else came from that. 100%. It's amazing how it sets you up for, I mean, for running. Like you said, it's exactly, I'm not surprised that Haile Gebrselassie did it because, those guys have perfect form. But yeah, on the forefoot, you're light, quick. I mean, for me, that's like, talk about cardio. I mean, that's some serious cardio, especially if you're doing double unders.
Do you know that jumping rope
So,
is rated as the number one cardio exercise? The problem is most people
wow.
can't do it long enough for it to be the kind of cardio. It's like me doing those chin ups. It's like there's no cardio there for me, pal.
Yeah.
If you can't skip
Yeah.
rope for a minute, we're not going to count that as a cardio workout.
True.
But
Yeah.
getting in and doing like
Yeah.
a good solid 10, 15 minutes on a rope, that's a serious workout.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
you did it preemptively and then went straight into your run afterwards, that's a good fit too. So
Yeah.
I started to talk about rather than the selection, thinking in terms of why and when, right? Now, and I kind of talked about with the workout that I wrote for Devin, that it was all integrated. So there was the strength component was tied to the run. There was fashion where it wasn't just a day that you're lifting weights. But I think there's room for that. I think there's room for having
Yeah.
potentially a day or even two, and I'm talking about a runner again, 2 days in the week where your focus is structural integrity. You're going to do those
Yeah.
deadlifts. You're going to do those split squats, and RDLs, the single leg RDLs. And as you suggested, doing a pull up or uh, a push up. Set it up with a plank. Maybe you start it out where you just integrate, just lock out on a horizontal plane and wake everything up and then go into some strength, right?
I love that because we all know that the main cause of performance failure is adherence, right? Like people just not doing what's on the plan. And I think it's like just driving that point home of not only one day a week, but maybe even two could actually benefit a runner. And I like before the last cycle I did where you coached me for in 2021, I hadn't really incorporated the strength component consistently in any of my marathon cycles before that. And it was crazy to take an extra day off of running with just a strength focus, but it was more crazy to feel the power, to actually feel like, damn, like even in a long run, like I am not breaking down. My posture's still here. I can go like into it. I can just dig deeper and get up this hill. And even just like the way you look at hills, when you're strong and you can, you're talking about doing the step ups. I mean, when you do a lot of step ups, hills are no longer hills. Hills are just like, just another reason to go hard. That's all it
Yeah.
is.
Now, there's argument for going heavy too, and
Yeah.
some people would think, well, I'm a runner, so I got to do just a buttload of repetitions. And I understand that argument, but I don't think it should be an exclusive argument. I think that there's obviously you're not going to get that power output unless you completely overload your body.
Yeah.
And just the endurance end of it, it has its place. And that's why I say, you know what, maybe start with a lot of volume and end up with some power. Just really get
Yeah.
to a place where, probably 3 to 5 repetition
Yep.
max lift.
Yep.
And this is where tensile strength comes in, bone density, the whole thing. You start to really fortify the system, tendon strength, ligaments. And what we didn't talk about, and I think it's worth noting, is that when you're doing heavy lifts like that, being barefoot's a good idea.
Yeah.
Do those lifts barefoot, because your feet are taking the hit too. You're talking about your grip strength because of the deadlift. Well, you're putting that load in your feet as well, right?
Yeah.
And I've taught people when they lift to press through the ground rather than think about picking up with the arms.
Yeah.
Try to push your feet into the ground to pick the weight up, rather than
Yeah.
trying to muscle it up with your upper body, which usually ends up with, a rounded spine, and that's a recipe for disaster all by itself as well. So
I think we should talk about the protocols, because we talked a little bit about power versus strength endurance. I know Dr. Andy Galpin and Huberman have a great podcast, a 5-part series where they go into like the deepest science and all this stuff. It's pretty cool. It's a good listen if you have the time. But just the very simple protocols, the idea that in a power workout, you're really not going to full fatigue, or to failure. You're not looking for failure. You're just looking for max power output, and repeating it enough times to train the muscle for max power. It's an interesting feeling to go through a whole power workout and be like, oh, I feel good. Like I could go do a run. You do a strength endurance workout and you're not trying to go do a run afterwards. I mean, you could, but I mean, you're fried, so the difference of that protocol with the power workout being short reps, even if it's high weight, just short reps, and then having more in the tank to do another workout. And therefore you could do it 3 times a week and still do all your runs. But yeah, what do you think about that?
I could see the rationale for it. It's like the dilemma in all of this is finding the time, the day, the week to get everything done that you want to get done, right?
Yeah.
And so when you manage to get to the gym, assuming that that's what you need to do is go to the gym. I don't need to go to the gym. I could just walk out the store and step right into a place where I've got stuff to play with. Which I don't, by the way, but I could. Yeah. It's funny because one of my clients, I don't know if he's going to listen to this. I'm not going to use his name. I don't want to blow him up here, but I'm writing his workouts for him, right? And he, I said the weather's coming on. He lives in Pennsylvania, so weather's coming on. I said, so is your treadmill still broken? He goes, yeah, no, it's broken. He goes, I need to get another one. And I'm trying to get some advice to him. I'm like, hey, you know what? Why don't you check out Craigslist and try to find a commercial grade treadmill that you can buy, slightly used, and get a decent treadmill for a fraction of what you might pay if you were going to get a serious treadmill. And he goes, yeah, I went down that road. I said, well, what's your budget? He said $500.
Wow.
I said, well, skip that. You're just going to get a jacket. Get a jacket and, go out and brave the cold because, you're going to trade crap for crap. You're not going to get a decent treadmill for $500.
Yeah, you got to do a Rocky style, run up the mountain in your boots and jacket.
So, and we're talking about ultra distance running, right? We're talking about, something you're going to crank up to a good bit of elevation and hammer this thing for, a couple hours at a time. And you're just not going to get that out of $500.
Yeah.
But this is the problem. It's like, it's funny because I talk to people every day, all over the world. And I don't always remember what they have in their quiver, as far as ability to do whatever exercises, right?
Yeah.
Some of them, it's crazy. They got everything, right? And some of them got nothing.
Yeah.
But, having a barbell, because the barbell is universal. You can throw a lot of weight on it. So you don't I have a set of dumbbells that go from 10 pounds to 70-pound dumbbells. That's a pretty good set of dumbbells. I mean, you can get a lot done with that much weight.
Yeah.
But a barbell, you get a barbell and you could, you just buy some bumper plates and start stacking that bad boy. Now, the downside, obviously, with the barbell is that you don't get that individual arm engagement or leg engagement like you do with dumbbells.
Yeah.
It's funny. You're talking about, I got off track here. We're talking about power versus what else ever. But getting it done, lucky enough to have a day or two This is where I try to slap it all together. Say, okay, look, touch the power, touch the strength, you know, try to wrap it up in 3 or 4 good moves. We talked
Yeah.
5. If you got
Yep.
5 exercises you do well, it's plenty.
Yep. Yeah. I think the power is a little bit more difficult, especially if you're a beginner in strength training, because it's weight times resistance times speed. So I think if unless you're skilled at the movement, then you should stay away from the power. I think like a first timer coming in and throwing stuff around quick. But if you're really looking for power, that's just seeing how fast you can move something through space. So that's where that speed comes in. Interestingly, I'm curious of your thoughts on this. When I'm doing a deadlift, like interesting to think about the concentric phase versus the eccentric phase, and thinking about running mechanics. And when you're landing, that hamstring is really going through an eccentric load as your foot's coming down and looking for extension. So your quadriceps extending the lower leg, but that hamstring is basically eccentrically loading to make sure that it doesn't extend too far. So I'm always thinking about how much of the eccentric loading am I going to get a benefit from doing more eccentric training on the hamstring. Therefore, like when I'm in the deadlift, really thinking about like the eccentric phase and lowering the weight back to the floor, as opposed to just a really powerful concentric lift up. So
Well, from a base perspective, know this: you can resist 40% more load than you can generate. So eccentric is about resisting load, right? And concentric is about creating load. So picking the weight up is concentric. Lowering the weight is eccentric.
Yeah.
So a good example of this is, we used to talk about the buddy lift, where you get on a bench press, the guy hands you the bar, you got way too much weight, you can lower it to your chest, but he's going to pick it up off you, because otherwise you're going to be laying there all night long. It's not going to come off at all.
Yeah.
But there's value in that. So you could have somebody hand you the weight, lower the weight, and as you develop that eccentric strength, it parlays into concentric value eventually. So I'm with you. I think that a movement pattern might be slow eccentric, quick concentric.
Yeah. That's what that's my default. It feels right. It feels natural, especially in the deadlift, popping up, driving the hips forward at the top, and then really just slowly lowering down.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think again, this could be done a lot of different ways. So let's just say that you're not compromised by so much weight that you're just trying to get this thing done, right? So you got like a 2-3 rep max. Getting it up is just a wrestling match to get the load up, and then you're dying to get rid of it. How many people do you see? They'll do a deadlift or they'll do a deadlift. They get up off the ground, then they drop it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I know
it's almost dangerous to lower it back down.
Well, and there's some protocols that are just focused for strength endurance, focused just on the concentric phase, because there's some data that suggests that the concentric phase is where most of the adaptations come from. The eccentric phase causes more damage. So if you did more just concentric phase, then you're going to get more potential strengthening and adaptation. I don't know if I completely buy it in when in nature are you going to be able to just choose that, unless you're throwing things all the time.
This is probably a little off context, but I think it's based on what we're talking about. It bears sharing. Back in the day, we had a circuit of exercise equipment that was pneumatic, right? The cylinders where you're just basically pumping air. And those exercises are basically double concentric. So there's no eccentric phase in the work at all. So for example, if you put your foot between 2 roller pads and do a leg extension, then you bring it back down in a leg curl. This is shortening, this is shortening, this is shortening, this is shortening, right? Same thing with an overhead press and a pull.
Yeah.
Because there's no load. If you let go of it, there's no load. So you got to pull it, which is shortening. You're pushing it's shortening.
Yeah.
The opposing muscles are working. So you would do like a cardio treatment where I had 16 stations that worked like this. And we do like a little circuit thing where you go around the room and it hammers you. By the way, from a cardio perspective, you're absolutely blown out, right?
Yeah.
We did this, it was fashionable for a while. I mean, I invested a lot of money in this equipment, set up a room for it, running classes all the time. And then one day, just for fun, I took people out of that room and put them into like a Nautilus circuit. So now there is both ends of it, the concentric, eccentric, hammered everybody. They could not believe
Wow.
how sore they were after doing that because double concentric exercise does not make you sore,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Yep.
But so I think that there's a tremendous amount of value in the eccentric phase of the training. And
Yeah.
it's basically, in basic terms, it's a protective mechanism on the body.
Yeah.
If you jump off of a really high ledge, when you make contact with the ground, as your body starts to decelerate, that's all eccentric movement patterns that are slowing you
Yeah.
down, right?
Yep.
If you went into the ground and shorten muscle, you're gonna be driving yourself. It's
Yeah.
it's not gonna bode well.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
I just think that again, it's not really, and this is really a good point that we're talking about this because it isn't really a matter of the lineup of exercises. It's the approach. It's what you do with
Yeah.
those exercises that matter.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and
And
I,
and then we're not talking fancy either. Like there's like we not once have we mentioned anything like I mean, and I've had a lot of fun doing Turkish get ups and and burpees and all these things and that really dynamic movements. But it's just at the end of the day, it's unnecessary. And if you have a lot of time and you're a professional trainer and you're in the gym a lot and you want to mix it up for yourself and your excitement, like I get it. But if you're a runner and you're just trying to supplement the effective exercises to get the most out of your running, yeah, keep it simple, stupid.
I went to I was attending a training seminar. It was put on by Rock Tape, and I forgot what it was about. I think it was something to do with training functional movement patterns and you know doing functional assessments of human movement, things like this. And the presenter, I'm not going to share his name. I hate throwing people under the bus, but it was very cool what he did. He goes, "Everybody stand up," because we're all sitting at these desks. He goes, "Everybody stand up and find a clear spot." He goes, "Now what I want you to do is I want you to lay on the ground, face down. Do not use your hands to get to the ground."
Oh,
And then so when you're laying on the ground face down, he goes, "Now get up without using your hands to get up."
wow.
Right? And
All
then he
right.
says, then when you get up, then he says, "Okay, now lay on your back and don't, same drill, no hands." So
Yeah.
on your back, stand up, on your face, stand up, and had you do that for a bit. You want to talk about something that's fatiguing?
Yeah.
It's it's like a worm on the ground. You're trying to roll over, but it
Yep.
was an effective exercise. So it it's just ironic what you can end up doing with a little creativity.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm all about what can you do for your feet. One of my exercises, by the way, I think I got 4 up there. This is one left. Was calf raises,
Yeah.
especially it's a whole nother bag of worms. I know, but one day we should address it. Not that we haven't, but transitioning to a 4-foot run when you've been heel striking all your life.
Yeah.
All your body parts are laid off because you're not using any muscle. Your calves suck, right? Your feet are laid off because you're not doing anything through the kinetic chain effectively to cause your feet to engage properly. And so getting on your 4-foot for a lot of people, ends up in injury. They overload their calves. There's something that breaks down because they just aren't prepared and they haven't developed the talent for it. So I have my people doing standing barefoot calf raises and decelerating below neutral ground and up and pausing. So almost isometric. Get up there, hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it. Slowly decelerate, heel below the earth, back up one leg at a time. Don't command any load until you're comfortable with the exercise without load, and then start loading. and get better and better and better at it. By the way, that works very nicely with skip and rope.
Yeah.
And so there's another exercise that came to mind. And I didn't even think about it until we started talking. Damn it. Because I have a video and I don't have time to show it to you right now. But I have an exercise where you sit on your butt, use TheraBands that are on your, try to imagine wrapped around your feet, and connect it to a larger rubber band that I connect to the base of my treadmill. So you sit back far enough where you're creating tension. So you got isometric tension, and so now your dorsiflex like this. So now your tibialis is firing, right? So both of them are flexed, and then now that you got both of them flexed, you start tapping this one. So contract, 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 and when this one's burned out, where your tibialis is screaming, you hold, and then start working the other one. And so what that helps to do, because we get so calf-centric, we're so focused on being up on our forefoot that our calves are just getting hammered and our tibialis is laid off, right? So that imbalance ends up leading to things like shin splints, right? Tibialis is just getting beat up, calves so dominant. So nobody ever thinks about working that tibialis like that. And you know, to take it a step further, you know what I'll do? Is I'll set a metronome and have them do, because it's 1 foot at a time, set it at 90 beats per minute. Tap, 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 tap. When this is fried, go to the other side, right? And I'll tell you what, if you're in trouble if anybody's listening to this, if they're in trouble with their shin splints, that kind of thing, first of all, the first time they try it, it's going to be seriously painful.
Yeah.
But you know, like rotator cuff issues, things like this, you're starting out and you can't move like 2.5 pounds, right?
Yeah.
After a while, you start to load up and you start to get stronger, and the problems go away, and you become, you know, structurally you're more integrated, right?
Yep.
So anyway, that's not on my 5, but definitely thought about it when you brought it up.
We got to talk about plank, because I had an interesting kind of pseudo experiment that I did on the track when I was coaching for Nike, and we had I'd say 120 athletes on the track. This is post workout, so they did a track workout, and then I took everybody and we had a plank contest, and then the next week we did a push-up contest. So this was really amazing to watch. Basically, 120 people all thinking that they're the baddest ass, on the track. And what ended up happening was, obviously the men dropped like flies because women are tougher. But it was interesting to watch the 3 that lasted the longest. The woman who actually won, I think she did like probably 14 minutes, something like that. And the first thing that all the guys said was like, yeah, well, let's wait till you do the push-up competition. Like, we're going to show you how strong we actually are. Fast forward to the next week, do the same thing, push-up competition. It was like the top 3 in the plank were the top 3 also in the push-ups.
Really?
And what's interesting about it, and the reason I bring up this conversation with the plank, because your core strength and how you hold your body directly influences everything else. And I think people think like, oh, yeah, well, I got a strong chest and shoulders. Wait till we do push-ups. Yeah, wait till we do push-ups, and you're so fatigued in your core that it doesn't matter what your chest can do, because you can't even hold your body up. Or your back is so weak. Your obliques are so weak. They're shutting down. You're not able to do push-ups, not because your chest is burnt out, simply because you can't hold your body up. So I think it's interesting to think about when we think about strength. It is a holistic experience, and especially with running, like, I'm glad that you put plank on there, because I didn't put it on my list, but definitely it's got to be on there.
Well, and the other thing is that I've had people do is realize that you're engaged from your toes to your elbows, assuming you're on your elbows, right? And then if you get into a rocking movement on a lateral plane, so your ankles are doing this, right? So all along the posterior chain, your spine, right into your hamstrings, calves, right into your feet, you're engaging. So it becomes a much more dynamic exercise. Okay, I apologize for that little video popping up in front of you. I didn't know it was going to do that, but what I did want to do, I found that video that I was talking about. I want to show this to you.
Nice.
So let's
see,
bring it in here real quick. going to let me do it. Come on. Let me do it. Crap. Okay, let's do it this way. Give me a second. I'll get it. Here it is. Boom.
Oh yeah.
Now,
Yep.
what's interesting, this is actually one of my clients, and I don't know if you could make it out, but you could see that there's little hickeys on her tibialis from the cups. So I put cups all along her tibialis. But I tell you what, this isn't to the beat, but this is, I'm telling you, it's highly effective. Highly effective.
That hurts just
So
watching.
I think I gave mine up. I think I gave 5. I've got the deadlift, I got the plank, I got the step up, calf raises, and rope skipping.
Yeah.
You had lateral lunges. I did, I wanted to put lunges on there. You know what kept me from doing lunges is I couldn't find a good picture to stick up here to show it to you.
Yeah. I put walking lunges and lateral lunges. The walking lunges I like because similar to the step up, you get that full range of motion, and then you're also single leg weight bearing. So I like that. It's something that I always incorporate: deadlifts, walking lunges. The lateral lunge is something that I've been doing more lately. And I just feel like it's nice to just hit that glute med and stabilizers a little bit more. And I feel like, especially if you're holding the weight in the front rack position, the way that you have to engage your core and your lower back to hold the weight properly going into that lateral position, I feel like it's really effective for back
your
abductors
and adductors are firing when you push off laterally. And this is
Yep.
something that needs attention. But it's a really good point, by the way. Very little attention is ever offered to lateral stabilizers of the legs. And they are absolutely responsible for your stability when you're running. And I've borne this out. I've had people do these drills on my treadmill where they're doing 360s. I put them in the harness and I have them spin around, run lateral for a while, backwards, forwards, lateral, karaoke lateral, side to side, medicine ball, and just get really nutty with it. But you see people break down when they're like 15 seconds into a lateral run. They're good for like 5 or 6 steps, and you see they're starting to fail. What ends up happening is they're just fatigued. The muscles aren't holding them up. So I think there's good argument for what you're talking about.
There's nothing that feels better as an athlete than that type of fitness where you can go lateral and change directions at speed and at the drop of a hat. And I think about soccer players, martial artists and boxers, football players as well. I mean, the ability to just change, on a dime, that's a super athletic, ability to do that. And I think runners, they don't think about it, but some of the best runners I work with are either soccer or football players.
I have
the two of those.
I have some video of some of the soccer players I worked with where we have a drill where, interestingly enough, my treadmill is kind of cool because it goes both directions up to 28 miles per hour and up to 28% incline or decline. But I'll take an athlete, like a power athlete, football player, basketball player, soccer, and have them do retro running. So I have them in a harness where it protects them from falling. And also I'll put we used to have a joke. I'd put the treadmill on and they're facing backwards, facing the back of the treadmill. And the treadmill's going in the normal direction. And I'll say, okay, I'm going to have you step into the treadmill and you need to reach back to engage the belt, because if you just put your foot down in front of you, you're going to be too late. You're going to lose balance. You're going to fall on your ass, right?
Yeah.
And I would have them repeat after me. Where are you going to put your foot? Behind me. Where are you going to put your foot? And it was like stupid. I asked them like 5 times, right? Sure enough, as soon as they put their foot on the deck, they do it wrong and they end up falling. but the harness would catch them.
They have a harness. Yeah.
But we would spend that session learning neuromuscular reeducation to reach behind and open up those psoas muscles and get that extension and mechanize. Once we got that going, we start to progressively increase the speed. And then after they're pretty comfortable running backwards, in a matter of a day or two, I can get them jumping onto a moving belt like 15, 16 miles per hour and run backwards. And then the next move is to turn 180. So you go from running backwards to running forwards. And then once you're running forward, it feels pretty comfortable. Flip right back around to backwards. And then we start having a pause on the laterals, right? So, and the laterals are brutal. And they start finding comfort when they're running backward. It's actually like recovery when they're going backwards.
Wow.
And I got a video to show it to you. I've got athletes I've worked with. I could say turn, meaning 180, and they'd be running a 5-minute mile and be able to flip around and maintain that 5-minute pace backwards.
That's unbelievable.
And then flip right, and it would just boom, 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 boom. Now, I'm not saying they'd run for 5 minutes like that. I'm just saying they can conduct themselves at that speed.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And so what ends up happening is when they get out on the pitch and they're playing, their ability to change directions is so much more refined than what's typical, because most people, when they try to change directions, the first thing they want to do is slow down. You know, their central nervous system's whoop. If we're going to make that turn, we're going to have to break down the speed a little bit before we make that turn. You know, 1 in 5 soccer players, female for sure, ACL replacements. You know,
wow.
Yeah. So I mean, there's 2 reasons for that. One, just not having the skill sets. The other, the QL, because of their hips wide or whatever. But anyway, so it's completely off point, and I apologize. But since you brought that up, I thought that was fun to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So did we get all 5 of your exercises?
I think so. So I did the deadlifts, the isometric, all 3 of the pull-ups, push-ups, and squats, just isometric holding of those 3, kind of as one type of approach. The weighted glute bridge for me, that was on the list. That's a key one.
Yeah, I knew you did.
Yeah, and I do that with a kettlebell, because I'm like you. It's like if I can do the workout in my house, these days I skip the gym. So I'll take a little bit less weight to do it at home, make it convenient. And then let's see here. So then, walking lunge, and then plank or L-sit. I don't know if that's what I had on my list, but those are the ones that are.
Okay, so do this for me.
No, we talked about
just for fun, and we'll try to put a fork in this thing. You go to the gym or wherever it is you're going to exercise. Give me the sequence of events and give it to me relative to what you're going to be doing in the week. So if, for example, you're planning on going out for a decent run on Monday and Tuesday's the day, you're going to kind of give it to me in sequential order and how you'd approach the workout.
These days I will do 2 strength workouts a week, split as far apart in the week as possible. So a 3-day and then a 2-day split. And then I used to really make sure that those strength sessions were as far away from key workouts as possible. And now I deliberately don't care. And actually what I'm noticing is if I don't go too crazy on the strength workout, the muscle activation I get, if it's the day before a pretty heavy workout, benefits me, because I feel like I have even better, it might be a little fatigue there, but I can deal with the fatigue. If I have more activation, then I find that benefits me. So I'm no longer separating the key workouts away from strength sessions. So that's an interesting change. That's been the last 3 years. But my approach is always going to be like straight to, if there's pull-up bar, straight to the pull-up bar. So I'm always going to start to warm my body up with a hang, grip strength, hang the body. And typically I go right into an L hold, L hang, if not just a dead hang, but typically go into the L position, get the legs as parallel as possible. And maybe I'll even surge. That's kind of where it all starts for me. That warms my body up, gets a heart rate cranking. And I'm going to start with pull-ups. So I'm going to do my isometric pull-ups. It's kind of my main thing. I'm going to follow that with the push-ups, get the upper body kind of rocked. And then that's sort of all part of my warm-up in my sort of perspective, because I'm really looking at the hinge exercise as the primary work. and then that's when I hit the deadlifts. I do a lot of deadlifts, intermixed with the core work. So um, I'll do the plank. I'll do lateral plank, and that's in between every set of deadlifts and or weighted glute bridge. And I just kind of go through that until I've got nothing left. And what I like to do is I kind of like to keep it loose for depending on the day, how I structure when I do what exercise. I always mix it up, but I always know I'm going to hit basically the list that I just talked about. I'm going to hit the pull-ups and the push-ups. I'm going to hit the deadlifts. I'm going to do the single leg deadlifts as well, weighted single Romanian deadlifts, so more of a straight knee. And then weighted glute bridge. I'm going to do the walking lunges. I'm going to do the weighted step ups, lateral lunges, and that's going to be the meat and potatoes. And I'll sprinkle in other things if I have time, and I'm feeling like I'm missing something. But that's primarily I'm going to do that twice a week.
Cool.
Yeah, that's it.
I have a
How about you?
I have a workout that I write for people. I call it Good Morning, and it's a lot of body weight exercise. But it starts with just lying your back on the ground, get as long as you can, and then roll over, get into a plank, and then from the plank go straight into some push-ups. After the push-ups, roll over on your back, do a glute bridge, and I forgot how many of this. I think it's like 3 rounds like this. That's just to get up and wake up in the morning, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't want to talk about that because we were talking about external loading. And what I would have people do, and I got to fly on the wall. I'm old and I don't do this kind of thing anymore. But what I would have people do on a strength day is, in a perfect world, I would have them skip rope. Come in, skip rope. That's going to wake the body up, right? After you skip rope for a bit, get into a plank, right? After you've been in the plank for a little bit, as an added addition, maybe pop off some push-ups because it just seems so natural to go from that plank to the push-ups. And then if you're not using any load, roll over now and do the glute bridges. If you're going to use some load, you go someplace where you could lay your back up on a plyo box or something. There are a lot of equipment these days that is set up to actually put you in a position and make it easy to do. But then I would do the weighted glute bridge, and then I would probably I like the idea of doing like a dead hang, just to shake it out, get nice and long before you go into the heavy weight. So do a deadlift, and so the rep continuum on the deadlift would probably be start out with well, first of all, I would do both. I would do single leg and I would do double leg. I would start with double leg and go like say from I don't know 15 repetitions, scale it down to progressively load, get to like 3 to 5, depending on how talented you are with it. And then after you get there, break it off and start doing the single leg work. Same progression, right? So you're knocking out that this is the meat and potatoes of the strength workout is those deads, right? If you've got a lot of time, you might go into a split squat. I think the split squat's a good idea. Or if you don't have the split squat, do the step ups. The step ups behind the deadlifts are murder. I mean, you're starting to get the attention. You might spin off and get on the rope a little bit just to shake it out, but principally your cardio component of the process would be the rope. And the planks in there, the step ups are in there, the deadlifts are in there. What am I leaving off the table? Basically, so and I don't want to spend a month in the gym.
Yeah.
I'd like to keep it down to 30 to 45 minutes total.
Yeah. Same here.
And or if depending on what is going on for the rest of the week, there I might have them run as well. And if they're in a gym environment, maybe they pop onto a treadmill and run on the treadmill for a little bit to just icing on the cake.
Yeah.
Functional movement pattern behind the strength, like you've been doing. Basically, just gather yourself and put it into a run. So I think I gave you 5. I don't know what I missed. Got the deads, got the rope, got
Step
the
up.
I got the plank. What am I? Oh, and then yeah, finishing move. By the way, I might squeeze the calf raises in before the deadlift,
Hmm.
and
Interesting.
reminding you that the deadlift would be barefoot. So being
Yeah.
barefoot for the calf raises would also work.
Yeah.
You'd probably want to take your shoes off after you jump rope because we talked about toe slap. We don't.
Yeah. Not fun. The
Cool.
worst.
By the way,
Yeah.
I have to tell you that trying to conduct myself here, and I don't have my team that's doing all this for me.
Yeah.
I neglected to open up the comment box, but it turns out there's some folks that have come in. I should
Ah,
acknowledge them. A fellow by the name of Diesel.
Diesel.
Diesel said weighted squats, Bulgarian split squats, and deadlifts. And Susan Hubley, I know who she is. She's done my program before. She's going to have to go to work. She's going to watch the replay. And Daniel Weiss is, by the way, he's I think he's a fan of yours. He's been to all three of these that you've been on.
All right, man.
He sees that
Yeah, Daniel.
this is again he's in Europe, and he said a lot of the OCR people. He's an OCR guy.
Okay.
Background in soccer. So anyway, there's some people that are paying attention, and I appreciate that. All right, Blue. Anything else?
Cool. Yeah, man. Consistency. Just do it. Just do it. I mean, it's
Consistency is key, no question.
yeah. It's so easy to stop. How many times in my running training we're all like, once the running starts to ramp up, I start to just not make time for the strength training. Every single time it's a mistake. Every time I do that, it's a mistake. And you might not feel it, and it might show up in the way of an injury or an overuse situation later in training, but definitely you're losing out on power and activation. So I'm talking to myself here, but it's like
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, at the end of the day, in any of this is just developing a habit, and it caused to be consistency, like getting up and brushing your teeth, right? There's the
yeah,
things you're going to do, and you
yeah,
just knock them out. And it shouldn't be a chore. It should be. Some people they get anxious if they didn't have a chance to get their workouts in. They're
yeah,
rude to people the rest of the day. you know. I
yeah,
had a conversation with one of my guys the other day, and I said, "Look, dude, when I say take a day off, take the freaking day off, right?"
yeah.
He goes, "Yeah, well, I got to do something. If I don't do something, then I get a little anxious, and then, my
I'm
day
a
doesn't
jerk.
go well." I'm like, "Dude,
Yeah,
just take a chill pill. You need
yeah.
you don't improve
It'll be
while
okay
you work. You improve while you rest." So,
after. Yeah,
all right.
absolutely.
Well, another amazing feat of action here. We managed to get through the whole thing. Doesn't look like we got
Yes,
turned
sir.
off anywhere. So hopefully everybody on all these stations got it. Pay attention, folks. Every Thursday, something's going to happen here, and we'd love to have you. And you notice I put Atomic Headquarters. Add a .com to that, and you can find Blue in his audio-driven workouts. And then, of course, anything else that you're looking for from me, this is how you find it, dshumanperformance.com. Coolio. All right, man.
Right
I'll let you
on.
get back to your day.
Thanks, Richard. See
Say
you next
hello to
time.
say hello to your lovely wife, and kiss your kids on the head for me.
I will, man.
Take care.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.